Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. You're very welcome. My name is Declan Fitzmaurice. I chair the technical committee for the Institute of Refrigeration in Ireland. And we have the first of a series of short webinars that we'll be running over the summer on the forthcoming inquiry process for the proposed revision to the standard EN378. The idea is, well, it'll become clear as we go through it. The idea is that we give the industry some information to participate in this inquiry process and to influence the revision. Thank you as always to our corporate partners. Now there's an extra edge here because we're hoping to draw on their expertise for some of the presentations. So I'll give you a heads up on that shortly. But yeah, it's great to have their support. It means there's a lot we can do. So this is a summary of what I'm going to go through for the next 20 minutes or so. In summary, the EN378 is probably the main standard for refrigeration, air conditioning and heat pump contractors for field installed systems. It's also heavily used for factory produced systems, but there are other standards that can be used for some of those. So it's for many of us, it's kind of like the Bible of refrigeration design and environmental compliance. The version we have at the moment dates from 2016. That's when it was published, and it came into effect as a standard in its own right and as a support to compliance with the Pressure Equipment Directive. So ever since then, the standard has been in review. There's a group of people forming what's called the working group. It's Working Group 06, working under Technical Committee 182. And they meet from time to time and they try and deal with the issues and challenges that arise on the current version. And also they try and face what's coming down the line. So obviously there are a number of things that it would be good to fix in the 2016 version. But on top of that, we've a lot of changes coming at us, in particular from the flammable refrigerant side of things. There's a lot of hydrocarbons, for example, now being installed, and there's a big demand for the charge limits to be increased. So any of you who are at some of the exhibitions will see even split systems using R290, one of the hydrocarbons. So that's something the standard is going to have to try and deal with. So this standard, the revision process has completed, and it's about to go into public inquiry. All across the EU. Well, it's actually all across the CEN, European Standards Organization member states, which includes Turkey, for example. And in that inquiry process, it's open to all individuals in the EU. That's one of our rights as members of the European Union and members of CEN. So we can comment on this standard. So we have an opportunity to get a copy of the proposed revised standard, to read it, and even to comment on it and influence the standard that will be eventually published, which at the moment is likely to be 2026. So the inquiry stage runs over the summer, July to September. In Ireland, the public comment facility will be hosted by the National Standards Authority of Ireland. So we're hoping they'll give us a presentation as well as part of the series over the summer and point us in the right direction. But at the moment, all you have to do is register on the NSAI website and tell them what standard you're interested in, and they will keep you informed. So what the Institute of Refrigeration would like to do is to try and get particularly contractors, but also end users and designers to participate in this, because it looks like we're going to have to live with the standard for another 5, maybe 10 years. So this is our opportunity to do something about those aspects that we'd like to see maybe improved or clarified, because it is not an easy standard to read. The standard is in 4 parts. That's actually going to change in some respects. Part 1 is really definitions and classification, which includes details on refrigerants, which under the proposed revision is about to be moved into a Part 5. Part 2 is the heaviest section for design. It's quite complicated. Part 3 concerns the site that the installation takes place on, and protection of personnel. And Part 4 is operation, maintenance, repair and recovery of refrigerant. So right to the end of life. The original version of the year 2000 came from mainly from an English British standard 4434. We had a revision in 2008, and this current one 2016. So 10 years is a long time. The target for SEN is around about 5 years or maybe 7 to have a major revision completed. But this is proving to be has been proven to be very difficult with the EN378. It's challenging. So the committee has finished their revision work. It's about to go into the inquiry stage, which will be, as far as I know, on the 3rd of July. The NSEI may have some correspondence opening up on it beforehand to get people ready. And then what the inquiry stage closes on I think the 25th of September. And after that, all the inquiries are consolidated and returned to the working group. And a couple of people from the Institute in Ireland are on the working group. I am, and Don Hoban, for example. But others, I would love others to join. If you'd like to join, that would be absolutely fantastic. Just get in touch. So the working group 6 will be meeting quite vigorously from October. There's a 4-month window, October until maybe March, where we process all those comments. Well, the working group processes them. Some will be will participate in the revision, so they'll influence the final revision, which is then issued to SEN for voting, which is likely to be in May 2026. And once that happens, then it has to go through a certain process in SEN before it actually becomes published as a standard, which under the current timetable would be likely to be November 2026. And at that point, the 2016 version would be withdrawn. So why is EN378 important? Well, apart from being a useful standard, it's also harmonized with the Pressure Equipment Directive. So for refrigeration systems that are to be CE marked, you must comply with the requirements of the Pressure Equipment Directive. And while this doesn't apply to SEP, Sound Engineering Practice category, it does apply to PED categories 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in categories 1, 2, and 3, and 4, this is a list of the directive table of contents. It's about 100 pages, and the directive itself isn't easy to read. But the main thing that connects it to EN378 is Annex I, the essential safety requirements. So when you design a refrigeration system, you're meant to CE mark it under the rules of the PED and the conformity assessment process. And there's a list of essential safety requirements that you have to comply with. And you're meant to check every single one of these and say in your documentation how you have complied with each of these requirements. This is quite a long list. It covers everything from have you designed it for earthquakes and wind to have you designed it for proper safety accessories and pressure limiting devices. What about fire? So how do you answer these when you're designing a system? Well, that's what EN378 is there for. There's a section in EN378 Part 2. It's in the annex at the back. The annex is ZA and ZB. Sorry, I'll go back to that. And these annexes list the essential safety requirements of the Pressure Equipment Directive that are covered by EN378. So there's an example of this list of requirements. So for example, under safe handling and operation, which is ESR 2.3, EN378 fulfills that requirement by way of compliance with clauses 62661, 62663, and so on. So if you comply with the EN378, then you can happily answer all the ESRs in the PED by saying, I've complied with the relevant clauses in EN378. And that covers the Pressure Equipment Directive. And it also covers, if I can scroll down, the Machinery Directive, which probably we're not so familiar with, mostly because the industry doesn't generally need a notified body for the Machinery Directive, and we do for the PED, or at least for categories 2, 3, and 4. So these annexes, ZA, and that should read ZB in EN378 Part 2, point you to those clauses, and it connects you with the ESRs in the directive. So that all will be updated as part of the revision. Now, we understand it's difficult to read the standard in the first place, never mind comply with the requirements. And on top of that, now we have a new revision to read and ideally comment on. If the industry doesn't do this, we're going to have to live with what comes at us. So this is a pretty unique opportunity for the industry to participate in the process. So what the Institute of Refrigeration Ireland has done is we've contacted and are in the process of contacting pretty much anybody who has published useful information or training on EN378. And on maybe so in the course of June, July, and August, we'll be running. We're planning to run a weekly webinar just for half an hour. So we'll be finishing bang on the dot of 1:45. So there may be 16 to 18 of these. You can join as often as you like, as many of these you like. They're free to join to everybody. They'll be recorded and put on our on the IRI website. So we've 3 lined up at the moment. There are quite a few others. We're just firming up dates and so on. So there'll be more information on those shortly. Now, in terms of sources of information, institutes, organizations, and associations, one of the main associations in Europe representing contractor or installer interests is ARIA, which is the European Association of Refrigeration, Air Conditioning and Heat Pump Contractors. Very big organization, and the IRI is a member of that, and we actually chair the legislation and standards working group at the moment. Now, the ARIA have a very useful document to EN378. It's actually one of the very few independent kind of commercial-free guidance documents on EN378. And you do have to be careful with that, because the standard is not itself is not free. It has to be purchased, and you're not allowed to actually just reproduce the standard. You have to be quite careful in how you do that. So there is a very comprehensive introduction to the current EN378 2016, and they also have a new document which they're about to launch on which I will open here and I'll give you a quick look at. You're the first to see this, really. So this is about to be published by the ARIA Association next week, and we've had a hand in drafting this. Other members of across Europe have as well. And the NSAI have since checked it also. So this is really all this information is freely available on the IRI website. This will be added next week, but you're just getting a heads up here. So there's a quick introduction on what's happening with the standard, a brief description of what the standard is. It's in 4 parts, and what the changes are. So this is just a summary of some of the changes. The area of calculating the charge limit of refrigerant, that is how much refrigerant you're allowed to use in a given application, is being revised. So if you're putting in an R32 system or a hydrocarbon system into an application, there are ways to check on how much you can use. There are 2 calculations, one for toxicity and one for flammability. So there's a big change on that. So if you want to be able to inquire, read the inquiry document, the proposed revision, and comment, then it would be very good to know what the current standard says. So I think there's a little bit of study for us to do, unless we're already familiar with it. So that's one hot area. Also, the safety and classification of refrigerants, which is at the moment in part 1, is being moved to a new part 5. And the reason for that is they want to be able to edit this more quickly, because there are new refrigerants coming out, every month, and it's a difficult process to update the tables, the information in EN378. So this will make it much easier when it's in a standalone section. And also part 4 will be withdrawn as EN378 as a European standard, and will become an ISO standard, which is an international standard, and it will apply both globally and to the EU. Now, the reason for that is the reason for that is that the ISO 5149 is kind of the parallel global standard to EN378. So there'll be no actual change to the content. It just means it'll now be governed by 2 organizations will have influence over its content. There's a lot, and ideally there's a long-term plan to to bring 5149 and EN378 together, but it's quite a way off, if indeed it will happen at all. So this document describes the inquiry stage. So the dates are 3rd of July to the 25th of September. And anybody who registers with their national standards body, any individual, you don't even have to be in the refrigeration business, the NSAI will send you a copy of the 4 proposed revised documents. So they'll make that available, and they'll also facilitate the return of comments. So if you have a comment, it might be one kind. It could be on gas detectors, it could be on area classification or the calculation of the charge limit, and whatever your comment is, you can submit that, and it will be fed back through NSAI to the standards working group, where they'll review that from the autumn. Now, there's also a vote that goes with the inquiry stage, although it's not as critical as the final vote. And the NSAI will control that vote according to the people who are registered either on the mirror committee or as working group experts. So that's a lot fewer than the members of the public. Obviously, we can't have 500 people committing to a vote. So the handling then of the inquiry stage comments will be by the working group. We already have some meetings set up from October to March, and there'll be a lot more meetings online. And the working group very often splits into smaller ad hoc groups to kind of focus on experts in particular areas on particular issues. Once that's done, the final draft is prepared, and the final draft will be issued by the working group and technical committee to SEN. Along with the vote, so the TC182 vote on the standard. And that vote can either be positive or negative. So ideally, the vote would be positive and we get the new standard. If it's negative, there are a few options, but the new standard is unlikely to be published immediately, certainly without some further review or modification. So to participate in the inquiry stage, all you need to do is have a look at the NSAI website. On this ARIA document, we've included a link to 4 of the countries, just by way of example, who will be running this public inquiry facilitation. So you just go to the NSAI website. You can even just go to it right now, and I think it's called Your Standards, Your Say. So once you find your way to that, you can register, tell them what standard you're interested in, and they'll keep you informed. The NSAI got in touch with the Institute this morning to say they're starting this process and they're starting to promote it. So you should start to see some social media posts on that as well shortly. And then there's just before the final page of resources and information on EN378, there's a note on what EN378 doesn't do. So while EN378 is harmonized to the Pressure Equipment Directive, it's not a full design guide. Much and all as we would like it to be, in particular because of ATEX. Apart from the Machinery Directive and Pressure Equipment Directive, there's also an ATEX Workplace Directive, and the EN378 does not fully align with that at the moment. So it's not an easy thing to do, and it's unlikely to happen as part of this revision, but it certainly is something that could happen in the future. So that's just something to be aware of. Just because you comply fully with EN378 doesn't mean you have complied with all the requirements that fall to the designer of a refrigeration system. So the last page of this 4-page document contains a list of sources of information. So the first source of information should really be the standard, where to get the standard. If you go to the NSI website for Ireland, you can buy it there, but you can actually legally buy it from any national standards body across Europe, and it's the same standard, and the price varies. You can also, if you want information on the standardization process and the inquiry process and the structure, there are a few links there and a few good YouTube videos and training videos. The second group for sources of information is through associations, organizations, and institutes. So I've mentioned the ARIA one. You should certainly download the document that's there. It's much easier to read than the actual standard, and it's a very good starting point. The second document that we've mentioned is a position paper by the Norwegian Association. And I'll just jump to this for a second, because this will be the Norwegian associations will be presenting this as part of the third of our talks. So in 2 weeks' time, they'll be presenting this paper. So the three Norwegian associations, refrigeration associations, have compiled this short document, trying to encourage people to participate in the process. They've pointed out areas where they feel that maybe there's a shortfall at the moment. They particularly mention ATEX, and they are particularly concerned with ventilated enclosures, for example, and flammable refrigerants. So, so that's the guidance document, and let's see. Then we also have documents from the Institute of Refrigeration in the UK. They have quite a few documents on EN378 2016 over the years, various aspects, some of them geared towards service engineers, some of them geared towards pressure relief design, for example. The FITA Trade Association in the UK have a couple of useful documents, and other organizations like SIBSI, for example, have some training material on their website. So we're just pointing to them. And then the third category is information for manufacturers and suppliers. Now, ARIA can't really promote these under EU competition law, so they just refer you to go to the manufacturer in question, whether it's compressors or controls. So that's the document that will be sent out in about a week's time. You're actually the first people to have a look at that. But it does describe the process quite well. I'll go back to my presentation. So then the two talks that we have coming down the line next week is a presentation on EN378 in relation to air conditioning by Mitsubishi. Now, we've asked all our, do you have it in the list here? We've asked all our corporate partners to, if they have any training material on EN378, to let us know, and we'll give them a little platform, which is the summer lunchtime talks. And we'd also invite members who have a particular interest or even a particular area of expertise, just to let us know. And if we think it's okay, we'll certainly give you a slot on one of the Thursdays. One of the big Thursdays is the 26th of June, when the Norwegian Association are presenting their paper, because that turns out to be World Cooling Day after Lord Kelvin of Belfast. So these are the next two talks then on Thursday, the 19th of June, this day week, and the following Thursday, the Norwegian Association. In the meantime, we would direct you to the IRI website. So if you go to the IRI website and go to resources, let's see if I can do that here. Yeah, I should have it live. Go into resources. So this is before you get into any membership section. So we've made this freely available. If you go into the EN378 2016 and proposed revision. So in here is a list of all the resource material that we have made available, and we'll add to it as we come across new material. The main body of this will be the presentations that were made by the standard working group experts, the working group 06, when they met in Dublin. So they met in Dublin 3 times over the last 10 years, and each time I pressurized pressurized them into giving presentations for the industry. So some of you may well have been at these presentations. These are PowerPoint presentations and not recordings, but they're absolutely excellent. And these the people who made the presentations are leading world experts in their area. So you have Carsten Hock from Germany, Daniel Colburn on flammable refrigerants, Stig Rath in Norway, who was involved in that paper, Asbjørn Vonseld in Denmark, who's just an extraordinary expert. So we have these resources available. From the 3 years of presentations, we also have a link to the IOR presentations, IOR papers, which are well worth reading. And the ARIA documentation is in there. We'll add the information bulletin that's due to be launched next week. We'll add that as soon as it's launched. We also have a link to SEN, and the paper, the position paper from the Norwegian associations are in there. So that's what you can find on our IRI website. And anything else? So that's the next webinar. I could go through some of the changes, for example, in EN378 on refrigerant designations and classification of areas and charge limits, but it's a little bit technical for this introduction. If we'd love some feedback from this, so please email Karen with some feedback if you want some extra presentations added in, or if you have something to contribute, that would be absolutely the best. Or if there's something you'd like to know more about, we'll try and find out about it. So that's probably where we'll leave it, and I will stop sharing and see if we have any if there are any questions. Not sure, have we the facility, Karen, for so we've got 36 people joining at the moment.
Yeah, there's a Q&A section at the top of the screen.
Okay.
So if anybody
Q&A,
has any
there
questions,
we go, yeah. So if anybody has a question, if you want to put it up there, I'd love to hear it. Nothing there yet. So for me, as chair of the IRI technical committee and being part of the working group, I can say it's certainly not easy. It takes up time, but it's certainly worth it, and it really does give you an extra edge in terms of becoming familiar with the standard and seeing what's coming down the line. So the Institute would absolutely love to see more people participate as experts. You don't even have to be on the council. If you just let us know that you're interested, we will pass this on to the NSAI, who can appoint people onto the working group. So we would very much like to see people do that, or even join the council and help us out in that way. So, okay, well, oh, sorry, here we go. Could you show us where? I thought I saw a chat. There was something in the chat. Could you show us where we can find PRE EN378 on the NSAI website? Yes, so it's not on the NSAI website yet because it hasn't been released. It should be released. It will be released and published before the 3rd of July. The experts in the working group have a copy of it, but I don't know if that's the version that will be shared. That's the version that went for final editing and translation. It's translated into French and German. It's published in those 3 languages. So the PR EN378 is not available just yet. It will be available, I would say, sometime before the 3rd of July. So if you register with NSAI, you will hear as quickly as I will. In the meantime, I would, we'll just have to make do with the EN378 2016 and try and refresh our knowledge on that one. So thanks, Matthew. If there's any other question, I'll be happy to take it. So I'm hoping that, I mean, it's a really good attendance, and I'm hoping this will this time will be easy for people to join in. I know there are people in a few different time zones here, but in Ireland this is kind of lunchtime, so hopefully you've had your sandwich and a cup of tea, and you can go for a walk now before you go back to work. So okay, if there's any last question. Okay, thanks, Howard. Yeah, old friend. And all right, well, I think we're a minute early. I'm very happy to close it. Thank you all for attending. I hope that was in some way informative. And please stay in touch with on the IRI website or LinkedIn. Karen will send out the QR code so you can join in every week. But at the moment, it's every Thursday for the next until the end of September at 1:15. So thank you all very much, and best wishes, and good luck. Thank you.